Humans slaughtered billions in the Zorgon War, fighting with a savagery and brutality that left even their allies terrified and sickened. The galaxy would never forget the horrors inflicted by mankind. In a bustling cantina on Zephyr Station, Fornax leaned back, his cybernetic eye whirring as it scanned the room. Rigel gulped down a mouthful of nutrient paste, hanging on the veteran's every word. "So they fought too damn well," Fornax said. "Tore through Zorgon ships like they were made of paper, boarded and butchered the crews, tortured prisoners." Rigel looked confused. "But they're our allies. They helped us win." "Helped us? Boy, humans won that war single-handedly, and they did it in ways that made even hardened soldiers vomit." Fornax downed his drink. "Now the Council is scared shitless. Humanity isn't just good at war. They revel in it." "What will the Council do?" Rigel asked. Fornax chuckled darkly. "Ban humans from fighting. Keep 'em on a short leash so they don't rip the galaxy a new asshole. But between you and me, I don't think it'll be enough." Rigel felt a chill run down his spine. If the Council's plan failed and humans were unleashed again, the carnage would be unimaginable. The galaxy's very survival hung in the balance. "There's a story you need to hear," Fornax said, "about a human named Jerry Boyd, a man who showed us all what his species is truly capable of." Fornax took another sip of his drink, the glass clinking against his metal fingers. Boyd's plan worked flawlessly. The Zorgon fleet was in disarray, their shields down and weapons offline. Boyd and his boarding party stormed the flagship, gunning down any resistance they encountered. Rigel leaned forward, his eyes wide with awe. "What happened next? Did they capture the Zorgon commander?" "Capture?" Fornax scoffed. "No, Boyd had something else in mind. He fought his way to the bridge where the Zorgon commander was barking orders, trying to rally his troops. Boyd didn't hesitate. He charged forward, ignoring the blaster bolts flying past him, and engaged the commander in hand-to-hand combat." Rigel's mouth hung open. "Hand-to-hand against a Zorgon? That's insane!" Fornax nodded, a grim smile on his face. "That's what I thought too, but Boyd, he fought like a demon. He moved faster than any human I'd ever seen, dodging the commander's blows and landing his own with brutal precision. It was like watching a dance, a deadly dance of fists and fury." Rigel shook his head in disbelief. "I can't even imagine it. A human besting a Zorgon commander in physical combat." "It was a sight to behold," Fornax said, his voice low and serious. "Boyd didn't just beat the commander, he destroyed him, broke his bones, shattered his skull. By the time it was over, the bridge was painted with Zorgon blood, and Boyd stood victorious, his fists dripping with gore." Rigel sat back, his face pale. That's incredible and terrifying. I had no idea humans were capable of such things." "That's the thing about humans," Fornax said, draining the last of his drink. "They're full of surprises. And when they're pushed to the brink, when their backs are against the wall, that's when you see what they're really made of." Rigel nodded slowly, trying to process everything he'd heard. The Battle of Helios, Commander Boyd's incredible feat. It was almost too much to believe. But Fornax had been there, had seen it with his own eyes. And the way he told the story, with such vivid detail and emotion, Rigel knew it had to be true. "So, what happened after Boyd killed the Zorgon commander?" Rigel asked, almost afraid to hear the answer. "Did the rest of the Zorgon fleet surrender?" Fornax chuckled darkly, signaling the bartender for another drink. "Surrender? No, the Zorgons don't know the meaning of the word, but Boyd had broken their spirit, shattered their resolve. He broadcast the commander's broken body across every view screen in the fleet, a warning to all who opposed him." The bartender, a grizzled old Vaxian with a prosthetic arm, slid a fresh drink in front of Fornax. The veteran took a long swig, savoring the burn of the alcohol as it slid down his throat. With their commander dead and their flagship crippled, the Zorgon fleet fell into chaos. Some tried to fight, others tried to flee. But it was too late. Boyd and his boarding party had already seized control of the flagship's weapon systems. They turned the Zorgon's own guns against them, blasting their ships to pieces one by one. Rigel felt a chill run down his spine. The thought of the Zorgons' own weapons being used against them, of their ships being torn apart from within, it was a level of brutality he could scarcely imagine. How many— Rigel swallowed hard, his mouth suddenly dry. How many Zorgons died that day? Fornax met Rigel's gaze, his cybernetic eye glowing a dull red. All of them. Rigel's heart skipped a beat. All of them? You mean— Every last Zorgon in that fleet. Thousands of them. Boyd and his men didn't take a single prisoner. They slaughtered them all, down to the last soldier. It was a massacre, plain and simple. Rigel felt sick to his stomach. He had always known that war was brutal, that lives were lost and sacrifices were made. But this was something else entirely. This was a level of savagery that defied comprehension. And Boyd, what happened to him after the battle? Rigel asked, almost afraid to hear the answer. Fornax leaned back in his chair, a wry smile playing at the corners of his mouth. Boyd? He was hailed as a hero, of course. The man who single-handedly turned the tide of the war, who struck fear into the hearts of the Zorgons and saved the galaxy from their tyranny. Rigel shook his head in disbelief. A hero? After what he did? After the way he butchered those Zorgons? You have to understand, Rigel. The Zorgons were the enemy. They were a threat to everything we hold dear, to our very way of life. Boyd did what he had to do to protect us, to ensure our survival. And in war, there's no room for mercy, no room for second chances. Rigel fell silent, turning his gaze to the floor. He knew Fornax was right in a way. The Zorgons had been a terrible foe, a ruthless and merciless enemy that had to be stopped at any cost. But still, the thought of the slaughter, of the thousands of lives snuffed out in a single bloody battle, it made him question everything he thought he knew about the nature of war and the price of victory. Fornax finished his drink and stood up, his metal limbs whirring and clicking as he stretched. Anyway, that's the story of Commander Jerry Boyd and the Battle of Helios, a turning point in the war and a reminder of what humans are capable of when they're pushed to the brink. Rigel nodded slowly, still lost in thought. Thank you for sharing it with me, Fornax. It's a lot to take in. It always is, kid. War is never pretty and the truth is often hard to swallow. But it's important that we remember these stories, that we learn from them, because if we forget, if we let ourselves believe that war is anything other than hell, then we're doomed to repeat the same mistakes over and over again. With that, Fornax turned and walked away, leaving Rigel alone with his thoughts and his half-finished nutrient paste. The young soldier sat there for a long time, trying to make sense of everything he had heard, trying to reconcile the heroic image of Commander Boyd with the brutal reality of his actions. In the end, Rigel realized that there were no easy answers, no clear-cut morals or tidy resolutions. War was a messy, complicated thing, and the men and women who fought in it were just as complex and flawed as the conflicts they waged. But one thing was certain: the story of Jerry Boyd and the Battle of Helios would stay with Rigel for the rest of his days, a haunting reminder of the savagery and sacrifice that lay at the heart of every war, and the terrible price that must be paid for victory. Rigel sat transfixed as Fornax recounted the fierce battle aboard the Zorgon flagship. Boyd and his Marines were outnumbered 10-1, but they fought like demons. They hacked the ship's maintenance drones, turning them against their masters. They blew out bulkheads, venting whole decks into the void. It was chaos, pure and simple. Fornax paused, his cybernetic eye whirring softly. But the craziest part was when they reached the bridge. The Zorgon commander was there, all four arms bristling with weapons. Boyd could have gunned him down, but he didn't. Instead, he challenged the bastard to single combat. Single combat? Rigel echoed, his brow furrowed in confusion. Why in the galaxy would he do that? A wry grin tugged at Fornax's scarred lips. That's the thing about humans, kid. They've got this weird sense of honor, even in the middle of a goddamn war. Boyd figured if he could beat the commander fair and square, the Zorgons would have to surrender. Some kind of warrior code they've got. Rigel leaned forward, his nutrient paste forgotten. So what happened? Did Boyd win? Fornax chuckled, a low grating sound. Did he ever? The crazy son of a bitch fought the commander hand to hand with nothing but a combat knife. You ever seen a Zorgon up close? They're built like tanks, all muscle and armor. But Boyd, he was like a whirlwind, dodging and weaving, striking at weak points. It was like watching a dance, a deadly dance. The old veteran took a long pull from his drink, savoring the burn. In the end, Boyd stood victorious, the commander's corpse at his feet, and true to their word, the Zorgons surrendered. The entire damn fleet, laid low by one human with a knife. Rigel shook his head in amazement. Incredible. I had no idea humans were capable of such things. That's the thing about humans, Fornax said, setting down his empty glass. They're full of surprises. Just when you think you've got them figured out, they pull something like this. It's no wonder the Council's so afraid of them. Rigel nodded slowly, trying to process everything he'd heard. The Battle of Helios, Commander Boyd's incredible feat, it was almost too much to believe. But Fornax had been there, had seen it with his own eyes. And the way he told the story, with such vivid detail and emotion, Rigel knew it had to be true. The young soldier's mind raced with questions. What happened after the Zorgons surrendered? How did the rest of the war play out? And what became of Commander Boyd, the human who had single-handedly turned the tide of battle? But before Rigel could give voice to his thoughts, Fornax was speaking again, his voice low and serious. There's more to the story, kid. More than most people know. You see, Boyd's actions at Helios, they had consequences. Big ones. Rigel felt a chill run down his spine at the old veteran's words. Consequences? What could Fornax mean? The Battle of Helios had been a turning point, a decisive victory for the Allied forces. What possible consequences could there be? Leaning forward, Rigel fixed Fornax with an intent gaze, his heart pounding in his chest. What consequences? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. What happened after Helios? Fornax met Rigel's eyes, his expression grim. That's a story for another time, kid. A story that goes beyond Boyd, beyond Helios. A story that could change the way you see the galaxy and your place in it. With that cryptic remark, Fornax pushed back from the table and stood, his mechanical limbs whirring softly. I've talked enough for one night. Got to be going. But if you want to hear the rest of the story, you know where to find me. Rigel watched as the old veteran strode away, his mind reeling with unanswered questions and tantalizing possibilities. What secrets did Fornax hold? What dark truths lay hidden in the shadows of the galaxy's past? Rigel's eyes widen in shock as he leans back, absorbing Fornax's words. The revelation that the Council saw humanity as a potential threat after their victory at Helios was not something he had expected. But that's absurd, Rigel sputters, his hands clenching into fists. The humans are our allies. They saved us from the Zorgons. Fornax sighs heavily, his cybernetic eye whirring softly as he fixes Rigel with a somber gaze. I know it seems that way, kid, but you have to understand, the Council doesn't think like you or me. They're not interested in loyalty or gratitude. They're interested in maintaining the status quo, in keeping the balance of power in their favor. Rigel shakes his head, trying to wrap his mind around the concept. So what did they do? Did they confront the humans, demand that they stop fighting? Fornax lets out a humorless chuckle. If only it were that simple. No, the Council is too clever for that. They knew that if they openly challenged the humans, they risked starting another war, one they might not win. So instead, they started working behind the scenes, trying to undermine humanity's influence in the galaxy. Rigel leans forward, his brow furrowed in confusion. Undermine them how? Fornax takes another sip of his drink before answering. In 100 little ways. They started spreading rumors about the humans, questioning their motives and their methods. They passed new regulations on trade and travel, making it harder for human ships to move freely through the galaxy. And they began secretly funding the humans' enemies, like the Zorgon remnants and the pirate clans. Rigel's mouth falls open in shock. They funded the humans' enemies, but that's treason. Fornax nods grimly. You're not wrong, kid, But the Council didn't see it that way. They saw it as a necessary evil, a way to keep the humans in check without openly declaring war on them. Rigel sits back in his chair, his mind reeling with the implications of what Fornax has told him. He had always believed in the Council, had always trusted in their wisdom and their guidance. But now he wasn't so sure. "So what happened?" Rigel asks quietly, almost afraid to hear the answer. "Did the Council's plan work? Did they manage to contain the humans?" Fornax is silent for a long moment, his gaze distant and unfocused. When he finally speaks, his voice is heavy with a deep, abiding sorrow. "No, Rigel, they didn't. The humans, they're not like us, they don't think like us, they don't fight like us. And when they realized what the Council was doing, when they saw the betrayal and the treachery, they didn't take it lying down." Fornax leans forward, his voice dropping to a whisper. "The humans, they fought back, and not just against the Council, but against anyone who stood in their way. They became ruthless, merciless, willing to do whatever it took to survive. And in the end, they changed the galaxy forever." Rigel slumps back in his seat, the weight of Fornax's words hitting him like a physical blow. The Council's decision to ban humans from galactic wars, the very notion that they could be seen as a threat rather than an ally, it all seems too much to process. "But why?" Rigel asks, his voice barely above a whisper. "Why would the Council do this? The humans have done nothing but help us, nothing but fight and bleed and die for the sake of the galaxy. How can they be cast aside so easily?" Fornax sighs, the sound heavy with the weight of years and experience. "It's not about what's right or fair, Rigel. It's about power. The Council fears what the humans represent, what they're capable of. They fear that one day humanity might eclipse them, might challenge their authority and their control." Rigel shakes his head, a bitter laugh escaping his lips. "So that's it then? The humans are just supposed to accept this, to sit back and watch as the galaxy burns around them?" "No," Fornax says, his voice firm and resolute. "The humans will never accept this. They'll find a way to fight, whether it's in the shadows or in the open. They'll forge alliances, build their strength, and when the time is right, they'll strike back against the Council and anyone else who stands in their way." Rigel looks up at Fornax, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. "And Commander Boyd, do you really think he's still out there somewhere, waiting for his chance?" Fornax nods, a smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "I have no doubt of it, Rigel. Men like Boyd, they don't just fade away. They bide their time, they plan and prepare, and when the moment is right, they act." Fornax stands, his cybernetic limbs whirring softly as he stretches. "Mark my words, Rigel. The galaxy hasn't seen the last of the humans, not by a long shot. They'll be back, and when they are, the Council and everyone else who underestimated them will rue the day they ever crossed humanity." With that, Fornax turns and strides away, leaving Rigel alone with his thoughts and his fears. The young soldier stares down into his half-finished nutrient paste, his mind racing with the implications of all he's heard. The galaxy is changing, that much is clear. The old order is crumbling, and a new one is rising to take its place. And at the center of it all, the humans, the wild card that could tip the balance one way or the other. Rigel doesn't know what the future holds, doesn't know what battles lie ahead, or what sacrifices will be demanded. But one thing is certain. The humans will be there, fighting and striving and refusing to be silenced, no matter the cost. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.